This evening's MMA news in short. Jon Jones reacts to Tom Aspinall's callout. Interim heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall demanded a unification match with Jon Jones after the win at UFC 304. Bones responded to Aspinall's callout on Sunday. Jones posted on social media, saying, "I love it, supply and demand at its finest." Later this year, Jones is anticipated to defend his first title against former champion Stipe Miocic. Chael Sonnen. Pimblett is 2 fights away from title shot. According to MMA expert Chael Sonnen, Paddy Pimblett may contest for the lightweight championship in 2025. Pimblett, a former Cage Warriors champion, is undefeated in the UFC and has won 8 straight fights. Paddy is 2 fights away. They've got to be the right 2 fights, but he is 2 fights away to fighting for a world championship, Sonnen said. Leon Edwards issues first statement. After suffering a devastating setback in the title match at UFC 304 this past Saturday, the former welterweight champion vowed to return. After a protracted battle, Belal Muhammad prevailed and he lost the strap. "To my fans, I'm sorry I couldn't get the job done this time," Edwards wrote on Instagram. "I have been through harder times than this in life and I will rise again. Thanks for all the love and support. I will get this back in blood." King Green gives first comments on loss to Paddy Pimblett. At UFC 304, King Green, formerly known as Bobby Green, had one of the worst nights of his career. In the opening round, Paddy Pimblett submitted him. "What a day," Green said in an Instagram story. "Thank you guys for checking in on me. I'm okay, I guess. Shit happens. Feel like I slipped into some shit, and it just went the perfect way. I had a bad night. No excuses. Shit happens." Green is a 50-fight veteran who fought the absolute elite of the lightweight division. Manel Kape claims Muhammad Mokaev tapped. Muhammad Mokaev tapped out of his guillotine choke at UFC 304, according to Manel Kape. Mokaev continued to prevail in the fight by decision. "You can clearly see the moment when Mokaev tapped," Kape wrote on X. "Before the fight, we were warned by the same referee that any manipulation of tap or dirty games, the judge would end the fight or have removed the point." OSP versus Ryan Spann set for UFC Vegas 97. On September 7th, Ryan Spann and Ovince St. Preux, 2 seasoned UFC veterans, will square off. UFC Vegas 97's light heavyweight match will take place. After 4 bouts at heavyweight, the 41-year-old veteran St. Preux will drop to the 205-pound class. NSAC withholds portion of Mayra Bueno Silva's purse for cage jump after UFC 303 loss. At UFC 303, Mayra Bueno Silva was defeated by Mayra Bueno when a serious cut above her left eyebrow caused the cage side doctor to end the fight. The Brazilian was eager to keep fighting, but Chason was declared the winner via TKO. Shitera leaped the cage and hurried to speak with Dana White as Chason started to celebrate her victory during International Fight Week. She appeared to be complaining about the stoppage while still covered in blood from the cut, and the CEO of the UFC was obviously powerless to stop it. Now that Silva jumped over the cage at UFC 303, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, NSAC, has penalized her by withholding a portion of her purse. Mayra Bueno Silva facing fined for jumping over the cage at UFC 303. The NSAC has temporarily taken $2,500 out of Bueno Silva's $100,000 UFC 303 purse, according to MMA Junkie's Nolan King on X. Although it is prohibited to jump above the octagon for safety reasons, fighters frequently disobey this regulation in their haste to win. King added that a fine may be imposed on the women's bantamweight competitor. The exact amount will be decided upon during the commission meeting on August 27th. Should Bueno Silva get a fine, she would become the next inflicted victimhood, following Diego Lopez. After his victory over Sadiq Youssef in the UFC 300, he was forced to pay $2,500 for jumping over the cage. Initially, the commission took $5,000 out of his pocket, and Bueno Silva was sailing a yacht that was comparable. It should come as no surprise that opinions on Bueno Silva's punishment in MMA circles are divided. The commission has come under fire from certain supporters for not applying the same level of discipline to fouls committed during fights. In the UFC, fines and suspensions for behaviors other than fighting are somewhat prevalent. The most well-known example is Arman Tsarukyan, the top-ranked lightweight contender in the UFC, who was suspended for 6 months after hitting a spectator at UFC 300. Charles Oliveira lists 8 opponent options for fans to choose from for his UFC return. Who would you like to see? After losing to Arman Tsarukyan in a tight decision at UFC 300, Charles Oliveira is currently searching for a new opponent. The Brazilian is undoubtedly one of the most interesting fighters in the UFC, having received 19 post-fight bonuses, and he has a number of fascinating matches. Oliveira defeated Michael Chandler in May 2021 to win the UFC Lightweight Championship. Before being stripped for missing weight before his victory over Justin Gaethje, he defended it against Dustin Poirier. He has defeated Beneil Dariush since losing to Islam Makhachev for the title, and he is aiming for another high-profile victory to have another chance at the gold. From Mokaev to Colby Covington, here are all the fighters that Oliveira is open to facing in his UFC return as Oliveira eyes rematch against Mokaev. Also open to money fights with McGregor, Covington, Poirier. Oliveira encouraged his followers to select his next opponent in a recent Instagram post featuring training footage. The following fighters on the UFC roster are opponents he is open to facing: Islam Makhachev, Arman Tsarukyan, Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor, Max Holloway, Justin Gaethje, Alexander Volkanovski, and Colby Covington. Oliveira announced his intention to fight soon next to the list. He said, "Who would you like to see me fight next? The Lion is ready." Do Bronx has previously faced off against Holloway, Tsarukyan, Makhachev, Poirier, and Gaethje. Despite being submitted by Makhachev in the second, he overcame hardship to defeat the Diamond and the Highlight. The Brazilian's shoulder injury forced the bout with Holloway to cease, and now more than ever, fans could be looking forward to the rematch. The UFC lightweight division won't necessarily change as a result of the other fights on the schedule. Having suffered losses in 3 of his previous 4 fights, McGregor is expected to make a comeback to take on Michael Chandler. Volkanovski, on the other hand, has yet to rematch Ilia Topuria for the UFC Featherweight Championship and is winless in the lightweight class. To keep the audience entertained, Do Bronx would also battle Covington. In his most recent bout, the interim UFC welterweight champion was soundly defeated by Leon Edwards, and it doesn't seem like he will challenge for the belt once more. It is reasonable to believe that Oliveira will take the battle to the octagon and offer the crowd another intense display, regardless of the opponent. Former UFC champion, falling from grace transformed Paddy Pimblett as a fighter. Robert Whittaker, the former middleweight champion of the UFC, reportedly said that Paddy Pimblett's improvement as a fighter may have been sparked by the ongoing concerns about him. This past weekend, the baddie put on arguably the best performance of his UFC career to yet. On the main card of UFC 304 at the Co-op Live Stadium in Manchester, England, he decisively defeated King Green in the first round of their lightweight encounter with a sensational triangle armbar combo. In the early going of the battle, Green struggled to connect his combinations, even though he was larger than Pimblett. Pimblett, meanwhile, concentrated on delivering strong calf kicks. The American seemed uneasy with this tactic, as he made a try at a takedown halfway through the round. With a deft countermove, the 29-year-old Scouser applied a guillotine choke, then quickly changed to a triangle choke from the bottom. With every second that went by, Pimblett tightened the submission hold in response to Green's attempts to break free. At 3:22, he skillfully changed the choke to an armbar, and as soon as Green passed out, the referee intervened to end the bout. Even after going 6 fights without losing in the octagon, Pimblett is still frequently attacked online. Still, the Reaper feels that Pimblett's development has been spurred by this enduring doubt. Whittaker believes Pimblett is more tuned in. In a new MMRcade podcast episode, Whittaker discussed his thoughts on the baddie's performance at UFC 304. The Australian said Pimblett has come a long way from his earlier fights, putting up a strong show of determination and attention to win. "I think that falling from grace he had just, lit a fire up his ass," Whittaker said. "He's just got so much better for it. I feel like he's more focused, he's more switched on than we've seen before. And that was the Paddy I wanted to see because that was the one we saw against Tony Ferguson. Like that level of determination, that level of focus, that ability to stay on task and mate. That's exactly what happened. Paddy saw an opportunity when Bobby was waiting for a takedown and had the guts and the confidence to go for the submission attempts. That's half the work, the confidence to go for your submission attempts and to believe in them. And he did that, and he stopped a guy that doesn't get stopped often." After being the first fighter to submit Green, Pimblett exuded confidence in the post-fight octagon interview, declaring, "Statement made, bitch." After that, the Englishman challenged Renato Moicano, offering a fight for later this year or early next year, provided the Brazilian won their fight in September and defeated Benoit Saint-Denis.